Hello, my name is Hope, and today I wanted to take the 16 personalities, the free personality test, the NERIS Type Explorer. Full disclosure, I will say that I'm not the biggest fan of this test. I think it's a little bit too quick and easy and not properly balanced. If you're looking to dive a little bit deeper, I think you should maybe read a little bit of the literature of MBTI, especially into the cognitive functions. What I wanted to do today is to take the test, kind of explain my answers, and I generally think that I'm an INTJ, but we'll see what I end up getting at the end of this test. I think it should be interesting. Okay, so starting out with the first question, you regularly make new friends. We see we have a Likert scale here, agree to disagree. They have 7 points on the scale and they kind of highlight it in green and purple colors. I wonder if there's any psychology behind the color choice. It's kind of interesting. Maybe ooh, grumbly, I disagree. I don't know, I find purple to be a very calming color. Okay. So regularly make new friends. That indicates a frequency, a recurrent frequency. I think I can get into conversations with people and I can be responsive, but I often forget to do things like give out my phone number or, make those sort of contacts for sustaining a friendship. So I kind of have to have the proximity, repeated interactions with the person in order to make new friends. So it doesn't happen quite as often, even though I am very agreeable. So I'm going to say right there. Okay. Complex and novel ideas excite you more than simple and straightforward ones. Interesting dichotomy here. I like complexity, I like new things, but I also I like people who communicate clearly, who are straightforward. So it's interesting because I could see novel ideas going maybe towards the external intuition. Complexity, I would say, is associated with internal intuition. Simple, straightforward. I think they're trying to hit upon SE maybe, so maybe that's where they're going with that. I'm not sure, but I do like complexity and novelty, so I'll go with that. You usually feel more persuaded by what resonates emotionally with you than by factual arguments. Now, this is just a rude question for anyone who's an INTJ, because INTJs are very deeply driven from the core by their values, their internal emotional values, and kind of the way that they view the world. So there's an argument that because the NI and FI is so sort of neutral and honest and genuine and sincere, that you really have to be persuaded by something that does align with your values. But if you're thinking about NITE, it is going to be the factual arguments, it's going to be the models. Yeah, I mean, if I had to choose, if I'm thinking about emotionally, they're probably targeting more FE than FI with this question. I'd have to go with factual arguments, but I'm going to go less agree because I do need things that resonate with my values. So somewhere between these. Okay, your living and working spaces are clean and organized. Yes and no. So something about NI, in order to focus, you really need to declutter. So oftentimes you're going to push everything away, and in a sense that is clean. Organized, I would say less so than you would expect from an NI user. The people who are probably going to be most fastidious and clean and organized are going to be dominant SI people, probably. But I do need things to be clean to focus. But I'm not a neat freak, and there are things lying around. Not as bad as ENFPs. Okay. You usually stay calm even under a lot of pressure. Yeah, and people perceive me as being calm under pressure as well. Okay, so you find the idea of networker promoting yourself to strangers very daunting. I do very much agree. This is like probably one of the most hated tasks. When I was in college, I'm like, okay, I know I need to reach out to people and make connections and try to figure out like where I'm going, because these are the type of people who can kind of connect you to what you would ideally like to be doing in your work. However, it often feels disingenuous or kind of false or kind of sleazy to go around promoting yourself. But I don't know if that's a personality type thing so much as like has as how you kind of view connections, like genuine connections with people. But yeah, I do find this very daunting. I also don't like sort of the small talk or falsely complimenting people. Like, I want the things I say to mean something. Okay, so you prioritize and plan tasks effectively, often completing them well before the deadline. Yeah, as a necessity, I think this is very true, especially with NITE. NI plans ahead, kind of researches a lot, and TE has the logistics of it, so you can do it very. Oh my gosh, NITE loves iterating to make things effective and efficient. So it's um, and well before the deadline. I mean, sometimes it depends on the task, I think. Okay, people's stories and emotions speak louder to you than numbers or data. This is an interesting question because I actually agree with this statement. I think I love a narrative. That might be an I speaking. But yeah, when people are really passionate and they have sort of a story to go along with it, that does really speak to me. Because I like to consume people's experiences because I want to see what their perspectives are. So that's the NI of it. Like, I'm looking for the individual person's right, their story, their narrative, how they're viewing the world. That's often wrapped up in their emotions, and because I feel like the INTJ has a little bit harder time fully interacting with the emotional set, they like to see that from other people, like it speaks to us. However, we do really care about numbers and data as well. Um, if you're trying to convince us of something, yeah, you can have your story and stuff, but you have to back it up with the support. Um, so I feel like I'm going to agree, but not super agree. I'll go here. Okay. You like to use organizing tools like schedules and lists. I don't. That might be a personal preference. I will constantly keep an up-to-date list in my head, but I don't actually use like organizing and structuring tools in that way. It's like in my head, it's built into the NI. So I don't actually really use those tools in real life unless I need to like write something down. Every time I get a planner, like, I don't touch it. Yeah, it's really terrible. And I should probably do more of that. That might be more like SI. Um, but the TE in me does like tools and stuff. I just don't use them very effectively. So I think the ENTJ would be activating their NI to use tools like schedules and lists, but I don't really, because it's all in my head. It's gonna like think I'm a P or something. Um, so I'm gonna soft disagree. Even a small mistake can cause you to doubt your overall abilities and knowledge. No way. I think this is why INTJs are often considered to be either aloof or arrogant, is because we do have a lot of faith in our abilities and knowledge because we have built it up over time. We have worked on it. We really care about knowledge and building knowledge and that sort of infrastructure. So before we bring you our results or our product, we are going to do a lot of the background work. So a mistake, I mean, I think we kind of consider it, or I would, I'll speak for myself. and not necessarily my type. But I think I would consider it a mistake to be part of the iterative process, like you're improving and making something more effective and efficient. So it's not really considered a mistake unless it's like a social faux pas. And if it's in the realm of like social interaction and it's a mistake, because that's an area that's much less familiar, that is going to cause a lot of doubt. But if we're talking about abilities and knowledge, no, hard disagree. You feel comfortable just walking up to someone you find interesting and striking up a conversation. No. INTJ. I am a responsive person. So oftentimes I will definitely like observe people and listen to people's conversations with other people. And if you're going to come up to me and start a conversation, I will absolutely continue that with you, especially if it's one-on-one. Like, I love that kind of stuff. But I'm not really someone who feels comfortable initiating interaction with someone. So if you see one of us standing in a corner, feel free to come over and talk to us because we absolutely will talk to you despite our social awkwardness. But I'm not going to walk over to someone in person. I will say I have observed people and found them extremely interesting. It's kind of gotten my like feelers up, and so in that regard, yes, I have sort of like targeted people for conversation. But this is not something I feel comfortable with. So I'm gonna hard disagree. You are not too interested in discussions about various interpretations of creative works. Hard disagree. Next. Okay, I feel like I don't have to explain that one. You prioritize facts over people's feelings when determining a course of action. While this is true, this is not inherently always true. The thing is awareness. I really have to know and be aware of people's feelings. As soon as that enters my awareness, I really, really do care about how people feel about a particular course of action. Now, the trouble with myself and INTJs is that people don't always tell us their feelings. And we can't just intuit their feelings because of the FE blindness. So it's really frustrating sometimes because it's like, I wish you would have told me your feelings on this before so that I could have factored it into my course of action. So while it's true that facts are prioritized, it will absolutely be adjusted for people. So I am going to soft agree with that. Okay. You often allow the day to unfold without any schedule at all. Disagree. I'm always asking people what their plans are. Like, what are you doing today? What's your plan for the coming hours and stuff? And then that kind of determines my schedule because I do want to be open and available for the people I do care about. But then I'm going to want to structure my time. But it's true that I can be fairly lazy, so I'll have a general idea of like what I will want to do in my various chunks of time. And then it'll be kind of mood dependent, I feel. Probably the FI driving that a little bit. But if it's a work day, it's very scheduled. So I'm gonna disagree. Okay. You rarely worry about whether you make a good impression on people you meet. No, I worry about that. I think anyone would. I don't know who would hard disagree with that. Yeah, I mean, I'm a human being. I do care. It's just I process it a lot later. So it might not seem like I care in the moment, but it like, you know, it works through my mind later, I feel like. So I'll agree with that. You enjoy participating in team-based activities. Not really. Not unless you have a team of people who are highly specialized and they complement each other to work together. I had this issue in college where there would be team assignments, but there was no accountability for the individual people on your team. So in that case, if you are a high performer, you end up getting saddled with a lot of work and it makes you hate team-based activities. So I'm going to mostly disagree. You enjoy experimenting with new and untested approaches. Yeah. A little bit more on this, like, love to iterate. love to try new things. Um, Now, the INTJ, I feel like in general, is going to have their NITE models, but they're always kind of like tinkering with those and improving the efficiency. So it's kind of like once you kind of learn a conceptual pattern, you try to apply it in various different situations because you want to create the most robust model you can. So it's like one trick, like many different ponies. So you realize this deep at the core, this sort of idea or thing that works really well, and then you experiment and try it in a lot of different contexts, and you kind of iterate. And so it's kind of a bit of both in a weird way. You prioritize being sensitive over being completely honest. What does that even mean? I don't understand this question. This is gonna screw me over, isn't it? Uh, why aren't you sensitive and completely honest? Oh, it's talking about brutal honesty. I think brutal honesty is stupid. Um, yeah, I think you should be direct and clear, but in that you have to consider your audience, and I don't think you should hurt their feelings. Okay, so I get it now. Um, I like honesty better because you don't always know people's sensitivities, but I think you need to be careful. So I'm gonna soft disagree. Okay. You actively seek out new experiences and knowledge areas to explore. Knowledge areas. Sorry, my brain stopped reading there. Um, Actively seek out new experiences and knowledge areas. This is tough because new experiences is more in terms of SE, I feel like. And that's like if it's physical experiences, no, thank you. Knowledge areas, yes. So this is another sort of dichotomous question that I don't think is very well balanced. Because novelty, new experiences, knowledge areas, that could also be NE, which is hard because if you're NI with like SE influencing it, then you like to do this too, because exploration is very important. But people like SI, and SI is not gonna love new experiences. TI is going to like knowledge area. They're gonna think they like knowledge areas to explore, and often they do. But whenever new ideas are presented to TI users, they often reject them. I've learned that from personal experience. So it's a very interesting question. I wonder how that performs in general. Um, I I think based on knowledge areas, I'm going to oof. I'll go here. You are prone to worrying that things will take a turn for the worse. Not really. I tend to be an optimist. Um, Although I am very cautious about the actions I take. I'm not prone to worrying though, because I have a very contingent mindset. So it's like if this thing happens, if things take a turn for the worse, I have a plan that I can maybe jump to reorient and kind of recover from that. So I'm gonna middle disagree with that. Okay, you enjoy solitary hobbies or activities more than group ones. That's very true, but not for the reasons you would think. So let me explain this a little bit. So the group one, it does have the trouble with social interactions and being socially awkward, and often those like require a lot of reading of people's emotions and states of being, which is a little bit harder for me. Well, I mean, I can kind of see people's emotions and stuff. It's just hard for me to interact and respond to that. Um, so solitary hobbies, not everyone likes the things that I'm into. So oftentimes it ends up being solitary. But there are some activities that do end up being like one-on-one. Like I go to the game shop to play trading card games. And I participate in a tabletop role-playing game, which is a lot of fun. But other than that, you know, like I do just sometimes like to walk around by myself with my thoughts and such, and get exercise that way. Um, so definitely more on the solitary side. You cannot imagine yourself writing fictional stories for a living. Okay, so this is interesting because I understand what it's asking. And I mean, yeah, I come up with fictional stories all the time. It's much easier for me than denoting like factual things. So it's much easier for me to create fictional than to recall factual. And I think that's probably the NI with pattern recognition is able to project those patterns into storytelling, which is very cool. Um, I can't imagine myself doing it for a living because I don't think I would be able to make an income from that because I would never be able to put my stuff out into the world. So this is also, I think, a poorly worded question. So I'm going to wait. You cannot imagine. Okay, double negative. Okay. All right. You favor efficiency in decisions, even if it means disregarding some emotional aspects. Um, yeah, I like efficiency. I like efficiency in the outcome, efficiency in processes, not necessarily efficiency in decisions. I think that's kind of a weird reading of it and maybe kind of wrong-headed. Um, Again, I don't like disregarding emotional aspects, not my own or other people's. I don't like it. Sometimes it happens. Um, I do prefer if decisions are clear cut, but they're able to be adaptive to the situation. That's my sort of final ruling, so I'll soft agree. You prefer to do your chores before allowing yourself to relax. Yes and no. Chores for me are very emotionally dependent, and I think that's the FI. But TE often overcomes that. TE's like, bro, you gotta clean your space, you gotta do your stuff, and you got to get your ducks in a line in order to feel like you can relax. So if there's some like sort of Damocles hanging over your head, there's no way you're gonna be able to relax. So I'm gonna agree with that because TE is gonna drive you to do the chores, even if you're depressed. Okay. In disagreements, you prioritize proving your point or preserving the feelings of others. Hmm. Yes and no. Okay. So disagreements, oof, I don't love that term. I like to discuss things, and discussing things is often towards the purpose of understanding. So if people are feeling and they're very emotional in the conversation and you can see the conversation is going around in circles and like the feelings are too much, the feelings are blocking the person from reaching understanding, then I would rather cut the conversation short. Go to your separate quarters, we'll reconvene later, or we'll just never touch the topic again. So I'm not a huge arguer. I like to see other people's perspective. So I may ask a lot of questions to figure out why they're disagreeing with a point. And then I'll see from there if there's anything I can do to provide understanding because I think clarity and understanding is the ultimate goal of the INTJ. It's the highest and best use for the conversation. Like it's kind of I feel like what I would be prioritizing is like the understanding of the people. I don't care about proving my points so much. Like I don't have to be right. So I don't like this question at all. You prioritize proving your point. Soft disagree. Okay. You usually wait for others to introduce themselves first. Yeah, absolutely. Your mood can change very quickly. Let me go back to this though. Oh, okay, it grays out either way. Okay, your mood can change very quickly. No, not often. Um, but that might be a difference in the volatility of my FI. Because I know in objective personality system, if you look into this, they have it as feminine or masculine for each cognitive function. And so my internal feeling, I feel like, and I think that my internal feeling is masculine. So it's very stable, very dense, and it's very value centric. So my actual mood and emotional state does not change on a dime. You are not easily swayed by emotional arguments. Okay, so we do have some questions that seem to be counterbalancing other questions, which is good. It makes me feel a little bit better about this test, but I don't know, it's still a little bit too reductive and like easygoing. I feel like to be very precise or accurate in its estimations of people's types. But yeah, you're not easily swayed by emotional arguments. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the sincerity of the emotional argument. So sometimes people will use emotionality as a tool to persuade people, and it seems very manipulative to me. And if it's not a sincere emotional argument, then no, it will not sway me whatsoever. But if you can tell that someone's being really honest and genuine with their emotional argument, then I am heavily swayed by that. Because I kind of just, I want the best for the person. Um, so I'm going to go soft agree. Okay. You'll often end up doing things at the last possible moment. No, because NITE is on top of that shit most of the time. You enjoy debating ethical dilemmas. Ethical dilemmas, not necessarily. Hypotheticals, yes. And because ethical dilemmas are hypothetical in nature, then yes, very much so. But I'm trying to explain the reason why I hard agree with this. It's because of the hypothetical supposition of it all. You usually prefer to be around others rather than on your own. I would disagree with this. I can very easily be on my own, but sometimes it's nice just to have other people around you for like vibes. You can just be in the same space doing your separate things, but like vibing, you know what I mean? So I like that. You become bored or lose interest when the discussion gets highly theoretical. I would disagree with that, but not for the theoretical kind of usually. No, I mean, NIT loves theory. Not so much philosophical theory, but like more practical ideas and models and theory in that sense. So actually, we gain interest whenever it becomes highly theoretical. When facts and feelings conflict, oh boy, when facts and feelings conflict, you usually find yourself following your heart. No, because facts and feelings don't conflict very often, because the feelings often follow the facts. So this question is worded stupidly. This is probably like an INFP question, because they would probably think this way, or an ENFP. This is just not how an INTJ would think. You find it challenging to maintain a consistent work or study schedule. Disagree. I like consistency, effectiveness, efficiency, and end up being like a fairly habitual person. Not necessarily routine, but by habit. You rarely second guess the choices that you have made. That's somewhat true. And I think it's because I do a lot of like pre-planning and research and stuff. I usually hesitate to make decisions until I can see the feasibility, sustainability of the end sort of goal. Um, and I also feel like it's inevitable. So it's like when I've made a choice, like that's it. I've done it. I've made the choice. There is no second guessing because it is now. It is reality. So I have to move forward. So I'll agree with that. Your friends would describe you as lively and outgoing. That would not be the words that would be first associated with me. Um, Once people get to know me, they might be like, you're more lively than I thought you were at first. So I will disagree with that. You are drawn to various forms of creative expression, such as writing. Very much so. I love storytelling and stories, such as writing, yeah, but it's really just storytelling in general. Sometimes I write. Poetry is also great. You usually base your choices on objective facts rather than emotional impressions. That's very true. You like to have a to-do list for each day. I don't. I have like a mental checklist of various things that I would like to accomplish. But I don't actually write it out. So I would probably. Okay. You rarely feel insecure. I think anyone who hard disagrees with this is lying to themselves because everybody has insecurities. And basically, your insecurities are derived from like what you're bad at or what you perceive yourself to be bad at or unfamiliar with. So I have a lot of insecurities around the external sensory, right? So interacting with physical objects, opening packages, for example. Um, a lot of sort of technical issues, such as like audio or like lighting. A lot of these things are going to make me feel really insecure, as well as like social interactions as well. The logistics of of things and getting those correct the first time. So yeah, I mean, I feel a lot of insecurity. It's just not related to necessarily like how I look. It's not necessarily related to how I act. Not necessarily related to my knowledge pool or what I think about things. It's just, on a slightly different spectrum than what you would normally think, I feel like, with insecurity. Um, so I'll disagree. You avoid making phone calls. Absolutely. I don't like to talk to people. I would rather text them. I wonder about this question though. Like, I would love to hear the thinking behind this because this feels like a generational question. Because I feel like if you're a boomer or a Gen X, you're more likely to make phone calls. Um, Whereas if you're a younger generation, you're much more likely to do anything else, to text, to instant message, to even to like Zoom or video conference. I don't know. So yeah. And plus, the robo phone scammers are awful. So who would want to? You enjoy exploring unfamiliar ideas and viewpoints? Yeah, very much so. Um, yeah. I mean that one's just obvious, and I think that's probably even targeting intuition. Um, Maybe more towards NE, but NI really loves the different viewpoints and perspectives. I feel like NE does too, to a certain extent. You can easily connect with people you have just met. Yes and no. Um, hmm, like I feel like if it's the right type of person, a really deep connection happens really fast. But if it's just like whoever, whatever, like I can have a conversation with them, but sometimes it never goes deeper than small talk. So I would say I would be more on the disagree side of things, but I have some optimism about my ability to connect with people because I like to listen, I like to ask questions. So with a little bit of optimism here. If your plans are interrupted, your top priority is to get back on track as soon as possible. It depends on why the plans were interrupted. If it completely nullifies the purpose or reason for the plans, then you just need to reroute and do something else, which is similar to getting back on track, but in a different way. Not necessarily back to the plans you planned, but maybe new plans if necessary, contingent plans. But sometimes you follow it, right? You follow the interruption because maybe the interruption is more interesting or more engaging. So I am on the agree side, but I'm not like I have to do the plan I was planning. So maybe here. You are still bothered by mistakes that you made a long time ago. SI. No, I get over it pretty quickly. I mean, certain experiences can kind of haunt me because, especially physical experiences, because I feel like physical experiences that go poorly like live in my body kinesthetically as trauma. And I feel like that persuades my behavior and stuff. So those kinds of mistakes, yeah. But I don't have a very good memory, so I'm not going to remember the mistakes I made. So I'll go here. You are not too interested in discussing theories on what the world could look like in the future. I like theories, and just sci-fi is really interesting to me. So yeah, anything speculative, anything hypothetical, theories, I think is really interesting. Your emotions control you more than you control them. I am going to disagree. I have hyper control over my emotions, sometimes to my own detriment. And you know, I really, it's just, I think it's part of the FI being in the third position, you know, just lower, is just, and it being masculine FI, my theory about myself, is that there is this sort of repression of the emotions. And beyond that, the NI is going to not dissociate, because that's wrong. It's going to compartmentalize, yeah, sure. It's going to see the moment and what is happening for what it is, devoid of emotion, but your emotions are over here. You can still access them. You're like, this is what I feel and stuff. I'm just not feeling them in the moment. What happens is it's kind of like the Titanic, right? Because you have your compartments of emotions, and then it gets to be overwhelming. You hit an iceberg, and the water starts like flowing over the compartments, and you feel all those emotions at once because it's like a flood of emotions that's very overwhelming. And it's so overwhelming because I don't have a memory for what that compartmentalized emotion was attached to, because it might have been attached to a particular moment and it was kind of sitting there, but I don't remember what it was attached to. But now I'm feeling these emotions and I'm like, why am I feeling this way? And I think there's a lot to be said about sublimating your emotions into like useful activities and sort of using them, or you know, letting them out in a healthy way. And so, for example, for me, I like to play tennis and I like to hit a tennis ball against a wall, and I feel like that's very good for emotional sublimation, any kind of physical activity. I mean, that would be my advice to you if you do have these issues of controlling your emotions too much. I would suggest letting that out through physical activity. So yeah, I very much disagree. When making decisions, you focus more on how the affected people might feel than on what is most logical or efficient. This one is again very tough, because I don't always know how the affected people are going to feel. What am I supposed to do? Go out and interview them, and will they tell me the truth honestly and genuinely? Will I be able to convey my vision, my plan to them so that they can give me the feedback that I would need in order to make the decision? It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And so I think logical and efficient is just easier to act upon. Um, and it's just more real and practical and pragmatic. And I don't think you should always kowtow to how people might feel, um, because sometimes people use their emotions incorrectly to manipulate situations and people for their own benefit. And so if you're always like people pleasing and kowtowing to that, then you don't always get the best result. So I do agree with this, but the people I care about, I do care about. And in general, I do care about people. So I'm gonna middle agree. Your personal work style is closer to spontaneous bursts of energy than organized and consistent efforts. Disagree. NITE is going to be very methodical. I think that's just how it is. When someone thinks highly of you, you wonder how long it will take them to feel disappointed in you. I don't care about this. Obviously, I would prefer people to think highly of me, but I don't need praise. What I want people to do is to tell me whether or not I have performed a task that is valuable to them. Because if I have not performed a task that is valuable to them, then I am going to stop doing that task in relation to them. Because that's just effectiveness, efficiency, that kind of mindset. I don't feel like they're going to feel disappointed in me. I don't know. That's deeply, deeply insecure. I feel a little bit bad for people who really agree with this. So I'm going to hard disagree. Okay. You would love a job that requires you to work alone most of the time. I have a job that requires me to work alone most of the time. I'm an internal auditor. But we do teamwork as well, and I love my team. And when we have discussions or if we need to communicate to help with various resources, I think we do that well. Oh, yeah, so I love my job. You believe that pondering abstract philosophical questions is a waste of time. Sort of. Abstract, I love abstract. Philosophical, not so much. Love questions. Love pondering. I'm more on pondering. I would consider it to be a waste of time because it's not pragmatic or practical. I just support those. So, I'm gonna soft disagree because I still like the speculation aspect. And I'm here for a philosophical question if you would ever like to get at me in the comments. You feel more drawn to busy bustling. I swear, I'm tired already. You feel more drawn to busy bustling atmospheres than to quiet, intimate places. And that is a hard disagree. If a decision feels right to you, you often act on it without needing further proof. This is a tough one for an INTJ because oftentimes it looks like we make snap decisions because we do and don't. We have a lot of foregrounding where we are observing, we're doing research. So we're kind of building up all of that even passively and actively as we go along. And then whenever we hit that tipping point of when the decision feels right, we will snap, act upon it. And that's often the part that people see. And it makes us look impetuous. But that's just, it's not true because it's all this lead up that you haven't seen has gone into it. So that's kind of a tough one for for INTJs, but okay. So while I feel like I vibe with it, like if it feels right to me, I do it, you know? But I'm not super spontaneous in that regard. So I'm going to soft disagree. You often feel overwhelmed. I only feel overwhelmed when it hits a tipping point. And you can talk about how unhealthy or healthy that is. I'm sure it's a little bit of both. You complete things methodically without skipping over any steps. Yes and no. Methodically, yes. But methodically, according to NITE, it often involves skipping over steps. That's like the key trait of NITE is learning how to skip over steps, sometimes to our detriment. But we're very methodical with what we do, but we skip things. It's a weird, I don't know if it's a paradox per se, but it's kind of an interesting contradiction. Um, so this is a stupid question. That's hard to answer. I guess I'm more on the agree side. You prefer tasks that require you to come up with creative solutions rather than follow concrete steps. This is another false dichotomous question that is really hard for someone like me to answer. I like creative solutions. NITE is always going to be trying to find efficient, effective, creative solutions. However, we often are so pragmatic that we will be doing concrete steps. We will come up with those concrete, clear steps ourselves rather than following other people's systems. But we do. Like, we're methodical. We're concrete. We follow, well, concrete is kind of weird. We do have, like, decisive steps, I would say. Concrete, maybe not so much. Because we are more on the conceptual side. Oh, but it's asking about my preference. So my preference leans more towards this because this feels like I'm following someone else's system. Okay. You are more likely to rely on emotional intuition than logical reasoning when making a choice. So we've kind of talked about this. Like, I don't necessarily have emotional intuition per se. I feel like I can understand people's emotions and sympathize with them. Yeah, I mean, to some extent, based on my understanding of people's logical perspective, I can put myself in their shoes and I can understand their perspective. And that's my version of emotional intuition. But logical reasoning is going to come easier to me. It's going to be the TE. So, okay. You struggle with deadlines. You feel confident that things will work out for you. This is really an interesting question in today's time. Because I feel like if you polled the American people, their confidence might be a little bit shaky about things working out for them. And you know, me too. Like I've been through some hard times in the past, but I've always been able to rely upon my TE to my NITE to functionally get myself into a position where things will build towards success and evolve towards success over time. Okay, so I mean, I have a pretty good life. I think things are working out for me currently. So I'll agree. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so it did get my personality correct, which is good to see. I wonder if because I took this a while ago when I was in college, and I think I got like ENTJ, which was incorrect. I took it once in the past and got INFJ. So this kind of, I think maybe like perhaps they've improved the test. Maybe they've modified it a little bit. So that's kind of interesting. I'm glad that this actually got it correct, because I didn't have much faith that it would. Okay. They gave us a quote. Thought constitutes the greatness of man. Man is a reed, the feeblest thing in nature, but he is a thinking reed. I don't love it. I don't love the quote. I mean, I like thought. I think that's putting a little bit too much importance on thought. Seems a little bit narcissistic or self-important, but okay. Okay, vision and pragmatism. That is definitely how I would describe myself. Should I... Let's... Kabam! We're getting big, so we can read this. Okay, how big though? Is that too big? That's about as big as we can get. Okay. Okay, analytical, yes. Insatiable curiosity. I do agree with that. Improve systems and ideas. Yes, I'm your gal. Strategic mindset. Maybe. Looking several steps ahead. Maybe. It depends on how you're saying that. Depends on how you're interpreting that sentence or that idea. Planning for various contingencies. This is absolutely true. So if you're looking several steps ahead, it mostly only applies to contingencies. You're not predicting the future in the sense of saying, like, this is what is going to happen, I see it happening, that sort of thing, and then it plays out. Because mostly when you're guessing at things, you're wrong most of the time. But you're willing and able to throw out all of these possibilities and all of these probabilities. And you're running the counterfactuals. You're seeing what might happen and what is most likely or probable to happen. And then you're setting these different contingencies of, like, if this happens, then I will do this. If zig, then zag. So, independent nature, that's true. Autonomy, absolutely. That is an FI value set. Prefer to work alone? Yes and no. I mean, I've kind of gotten better with that over time. Trusting your own judgment and abilities above all else. I mean, sometimes to a fault, probably. Self-reliance, absolutely. But it might come from feeling like I have to be self-reliant. Like people don't understand my needs and they're not able to take care of me, so I have to do it myself. That sort of thing is probably what drives that. Intellectual prowess, I mean, thank you. That's really kind of you to say. I don't know if that's true over other people, because I feel like intellectual prowess is just learning and knowledge over time. So I feel like anyone can have an intellectual prowess, like they're capable of it. Allows you to tackle complex problems. Yeah, confidence and innovation, okay. Look at this blocky picture. Oh, the percentages. I don't see how you can be percentage of things. This is silly. 97% introverted. Bro, that's deeply introverted. That is 3% away from lock me up and be a hermit. Okay, intuitive. I agree with that. Thinking, it's like, okay. Oh, it's putting me more towards, okay. I see, okay. I understand. I think my TE is very, very much there. I think I just responded to questions alternatively to what people would think I would. Judging, sure. I don't know if I agree with what is judging. Judging is organized, decisive, thorough. Yeah. Over spontaneity, sure. Assertive, self-assured, even-tempered. I mean, that's true as well. Rational approach to life, definitely. Sometimes create challenges in personal relationships. I mean, Yeah, but I feel like anything could create challenges in personal relationships. So, who are you talking to, really? Anyone? You may find emotional expressions and social niceties puzzling. Yeah, I mean, I sometimes miss social cues, or I don't know what the correct protocol is. I'm socially awkward. I can interpret emotional expression, but I can't always tell what is behind the emotional expression, so that makes it a little bit harder for me to interact with it. But sometimes emotional expressions are just a front, honestly. Like they're covering up something else. And so I'm looking beyond that at the sort of like patterns of behavior over time, and that tells me more about people. Um, Unnecessary. Sometimes niceties feel, or social convention feel unnecessary, or downright incorrect or bad or wrong or marginalizing. I do like direct communication and logical discussions. Some people find that intimidating or they find it too demanding, so I have to scale that back when I am in social situations. Make you appear aloof or detached, unfortunately. Even when you care deeply. Thank you for recognizing that. Okay. I am feeling better about this test. Your pursuit of knowledge and improvement is relentless. I mean, I can be lazy too. You have high standards for yourself, yes, and others, not so much. High standards for others is more of a TI thing, I feel like. They're more, and that might just be more of a perfectionist thing. I would rather people be their genuine selves. So I kind of take them as they are. So my high standards apply to myself, but not typically to others. Striving for efficiency and effectiveness. Yes. What's really interesting about being an auditor is that often my work involves tests of efficiency and tests of effectiveness, looking at processes, policies, and procedures. So it's like a perfect fit. Um, Drive for perfection, I disagree. I don't think it's a drive for perfection. I think it's a drive for pragmatically the highest and best use of something. So I don't think perfection is something that can be achieved. So, and often it depends on your perspective and definition of what perfection is. I think it's unobtainable. So why should you drive for that? That seems a little bit foolish. And again, that seems more of like a TI type of thing. Can be both a strength and weakness, potentially leading to stress and burnout. Stress and burnout, I do agree with, but it's because the INTJ is very task based. So we're like, I gotta do this task and this task and this task. But not so much as the ENTJ. So I feel like the ENTJ is more prone to stress and burnout than the INTJ. We would more likely get stress and burnout if we were doing our tasks in a very urgent environment involving a lot of like sensory difficulty. So that would lead to our stress and burnout is engaging with the sensory like often and like having it overwhelm us. What does it say? I have my career, but intellectual challenges, yeah, sure. Okay. Get the full innovative, independent, conceptual. That's the most. Continuous improvement, also the most. We are very reliable. Objective judgment. Look, please ask us for our objective view. Um, it's always, I think it's always useful if you ask an INTJ for their objective judgment. And we will always give it. We will. Um, unless. Okay, here's the one situation where we wouldn't give our objective judgment, and even then, we might still give it. So if you are particularly insecure, and we know that, and if we kind of already perceive you as like a toxic person that we don't really care about, we might just avoid you and not give our objective judgment, even if you ask us flat out. That's like the one situation I can think of. Because I feel like I always have to qualify my statements. Let's see. Discomfort with networking, definitely. Frustration with constraints, yeah. Ignoring social, not ignoring, okay? Sometimes I just don't I don't see, yeah, missing cues. I'm not ignoring, I'm just missing it. Causing unintended misunderstandings, probably. Overly blunt feedback, I feel like that's a little bit rude. I feel like you can temper that. If you grow over time, you can really temper this. And INTJs are not this is not the type who will do this the most. Other types will do this more than us. Because there are other types that will push on the FE, and we don't push on the FE because we don't really conceptualize it. So there are people who are ruder than us, okay? We are not the worst offenders. Okay. Reluctance to delegate tasks. Yeah, I do find that to be true. Impatience with routine. Yes. Can be habitual, but whenever we have to establish and follow a routine that is exactly the same and is stringent in those steps, not going to be able to maintain it. So yeah, I feel like this is kind of the end of this. Let me know how you feel about my results, if you agree, disagree. Oh, hey, strengths, authentic sincerity, very true. Insightful advice, take me up on that. Quietly caring, yes. Selective loyalty, Respecting autonomy, absolutely. Meaningful conversations, yeah, okay. This is absolutely correct. If you want these things in your life, get to know an INTJ. I highly recommend it. These are all great things we can offer you. That's rude. That's true, but not in a bad way. Yeah, sometimes we do need to isolate, but don't take offense to it. Like I said, you can temper that. No, I mean, we can share vulnerabilities, especially if we get into like a deep one-on-one conversation and we trust you. High relationship standards, I disagree with that. Maybe some INTJs, but not all of us. Okay. So yeah, I guess you can pay for more if you want to. I wouldn't suggest it. Do I agree with these? I don't agree with Elon. I feel like he's an INTP. Michelle Obama, that would be cool. I don't really know people well enough. I haven't really seen their interviews. I'd have to... I don't know some of the... That's a fictional character. How dare you? Yennefer? I could see it. Gandalf? Yeah. Actually, yeah, I could see it. Professor Moriarty? Maybe? Gatsby? I could, maybe. I mean, he's more on the emotional side, but maybe that's a deep FI. 7 of 9? I'm gonna have to watch that. Okay, well that's kind of fun, honestly. I don't know if I agree with these. Let me know if you agree with these. If you end up taking this, please tell me about that and your experience. Oh, we could answer some questions in the comments. I might do that real quick. I'm curious, which religion do INTJs gravitate towards? I will speak towards myself. I did not gravitate towards a religion. I grew up flat denominational, just Christian, non-denominational. However, I feel like I'm agnostic because I don't like organized religion. If I were to gravitate towards a religion, it would probably be something like Buddhism or Taoism, something that is a bit more self-reflective. But yeah, I'm agnostic. I don't want to downplay other people's beliefs because that's one of my personal beliefs. I don't like to dismiss other people's beliefs. Yeah. Let's see. I broke up with my girlfriend 3 years ago. A wise man once told me that you don't have to chase after love, but that you have to keep patient. Love will find you. Took this advice seriously. Didn't seek for love. Um, Bro, nah. You need to go out and you have to make effort. I think you took this advice the wrong way. Chasing after love, I mean, I think that's more interpreted in the sense of like people pleasing, which INTJs will probably never do anyway. So, advice towards INTJs, you need to make the effort to make deep connections and build trust with people. You need to make the effort to make those relationships. That is the advice I have to give you. You can't just sit back and not do that because then you will have no one. And everybody needs someone. Already one of the extremes of the spectrum? Maybe. Lack of emotional intelligence, I disagree. Um, let's see. Meeting you on an INTJ to date you, that's hilarious. Try to connect with someone you might feel interested in. Drown deep relationships? Are drown to deep. Drawn? Okay. We're. Oh, jeez, fix your spelling, Jesus. Um, Deep thinker. Okay. You should try tracking thoughts before birth. They're fucking with you. Okay. Bro, are we trying to matchmake? I love ENFPs. Yeah, why are you looking? I'm 21. Are we dating? Okay. Is this a new dating website? Could have better interactions. Polar opposites. These are not polar opposites, by the way. We get along great. Um, we need to realize that a lot of people have creative and smart thoughts too. I do embrace that. I think that's good advice. Everybody has a different perspective because they've spent their lives having different experiences. So I think you just need to crack people open like little nuts and get to that little gem of perspective and see what their knowledge pool is. Go for it. Okay, so yeah, tell me your thoughts, how you feel. I'd love to know. Thanks for hanging out and have a great day.